sounds impossible, but there's a state where the National Weather Service officially warns residents about frozen lizards falling from the sky. A state where the Constitution includes protections for pregnant pigs. Where a single beach has recorded more shark bites than some entire countries. And where a man once threw a live alligator through a Wendy's drive-thru window at 1 in the morning. You might think you know Florida. You don't. Not even close. Today, you'll discover 19 absolutely real facts about the Sunshine State that will completely change how you see it. And stick around, because near the end, we'll uncover how a single law from 1909 accidentally created the most famous meme in American culture, and why the mugshot that represents it isn't even from Florida. Let's get into it. Fact 19. The National Weather Service issues falling iguana alerts. When temperatures in South Florida drop below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, green iguanas go into a cold-stunned stupor. Their muscles lock up, they lose their grip, and they fall out of trees like scaly, prehistoric hail. The National Weather Service office in Miami has issued falling iguana advisories during multiple cold snaps since 2022. These are actual forecast warnings. And since 2021, it's been illegal to own a green iguana as a pet in Florida under FWC rules. You can't keep them, but you also can't stop them from raining down on your car. Fact 18. Florida's highest point is shorter than most office buildings. Every state in America has a highest natural point. For Colorado, it's over 14,000 feet. For Alaska, over 20,000. For Florida, 345 feet. Britton Hill in Walton County is the lowest state high point in the entire country, a full 103 feet shorter than Delaware's Ebright Azimuth. Miami's Panorama Tower stands more than 2.5 times taller than Florida's highest piece of land. And the hike to the summit, a 100-foot walk from a parking lot. Britton Hill also sits in the Panhandle, one of the few parts of the state in the Central Time Zone, making it an hour behind most of Florida. Fact 17. Confining a pregnant pig is a constitutional crime. Florida's Constitution has something unusual tucked into Article 10, Section 21. It is a constitutional violation to confine a pregnant pig in a space so small that she cannot turn around freely. The penalty? $5,000 per pig. Florida voters approved it in November 2002, and it went into effect in 2008. Former Governor Jeb Bush reportedly said pregnant pigs don't belong in the Constitution, but the voters disagreed, making Florida the first state to ban a farming practice on cruelty grounds through the Constitution itself. Fact 16. One beach has more shark bites than most countries. If you've ever swum at the New Smyrna Beach in Volusia County, you were almost certainly within 10 feet of a shark. That's a direct statement from Gavin Naylor, director of the International Shark Attack File at the Florida Museum of Natural History. Volusia County's logged roughly 350 unprovoked shark bites historically, more than any other country on Earth. In 2024, Florida recorded 14 unprovoked bites, half the entire U.S. total. Most are minor, but on June 7, 2024, 15-year-old Lulu Gribben lost a hand and a leg in a panhandle attack, inspiring a proposed federal law called Lulu's Law for wireless shark alert systems. Fact 15. The oldest county in America is in Florida. Sumter County, home to the Villages, is 58.9% senior citizens with a median age of 68.5. That makes it the oldest county in the entire United States. According to U.S. Census Bureau estimates, Florida exceeded 23 million residents for the first time in 2024, making it simultaneously one of the oldest and one of the fastest growing states in America. Fact 14. The single freeze event opened over 110 sinkholes in one county. In January 2010, near Dover, Florida, a hard freeze pushed farmers to pump massive amounts of groundwater to coat crops in protective ice. Groundwater levels plummeted, the karst limestone below collapsed, and over 110 sinkholes opened in Hillsborough County within days. The USGS estimates that sinkhole damage in the U.S. averages at least $300 million per year. The ground beneath your feet in Florida is quite literally not always there. Fact 13. One Florida town lets you keep elephants in your yard. South of Tampa, there's an unassuming community called Gibsonton. Locals call it Gibtown, and for most of the 20th century, it was the winter home of America's carnival and sideshow performers. A friend of mine from Tampa drove me through Gibtown once, and I thought he was making the whole thing up until I looked up the zoning codes myself. Hillsborough County created a designation that exists nowhere else: residential show business zoning. Residents could, and in some cases still can, legally keep elephants and Ferris wheels on their property. During its heyday, residents included Altomani at 7 feet 4 inches and his wife Jeannie, the half-girl, at 2 feet 6. The post office even installed lower counters for residents who were little people. Fact 12. Key West declared war on the United States and surrendered in 1 minute. On April 23, 1982, the mayor of Key West, Dennis Wardlow, declared secession from the United States. I first remember hearing about this in college and being absolutely convinced it was an urban legend. A U.S. Border Patrol roadblock on U.S. Route 1 was causing 17-mile backups. Wardlow declared Key West the independent Conch Republic, formally declared war, then surrendered 1 minute later by breaking a loaf of stale Cuban bread over the head of a man in a Navy uniform. He then applied for $1 billion in foreign aid. The roadblock was quietly removed, and Key West still commemorates the secession every April. Fact 11. Florida's lightning is on a different level. Florida is still the most lightning-dense state in America. According to the Vaisala X-Weather 2025 Annual Lightning Report, Florida led the nation with 305 lightning events per square mile. Hard Rock Stadium logs 324 hours of lightning warning time, more than any open-air stadium in the country. And while a typical U.S. strike carries about 30,000 amps, Florida's strongest strike of 2025 measured just under 470,000 amps. One of the state's most astonishing hotspots appeared in 2022 when Four Corners, near Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge, recorded 1,229 lightning events per square mile, the densest concentration recorded for any U.S. community that year. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this deep dive, go ahead and hit subscribe. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Fact 10. Florida is losing a war against giant snakes. Burmese pythons were first spotted in the Florida Everglades in the late 1970s, likely released pets. A breeding population was confirmed by 2000, and despite everything Florida has thrown at them, the snakes are winning. According to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, contractors removed 748 pythons in a single month, July 2025, exceeding the program's prior 12-month total. Since 2000, more than 23,000 pythons have been pulled from the Everglades. A 2023 USGS study concluded that total eradication is likely impossible, since females can lay 50 to 100 eggs at a time. And a company called Inversa now makes python skin footballs and wallets from the carcasses. If you can't beat the snakes, apparently you can accessorize with them. Fact 9. The Florida Keys are the waterspout capital of the world. Between 400 and 500 waterspouts form around the Florida Keys every year, more than anywhere else on Earth. On March 28, 2017, NWS observers counted 14 waterspouts visible simultaneously, the highest single observation count on record. During the 1969 Lower Keys Waterspout Project, scientists measured rotational winds reaching 190 miles per hour. NOAA scientist Dr. Joseph Golden once called the Keys the biggest naturally occurring vortex lab in the world. Fact 8. Florida holds the largest concentration of freshwater springs on the planet. Florida hosts 53 first-magnitude springs, the largest concentration on the planet. The most powerful is Wakulla Spring near Tallahassee, which on April 11, 1973, as the U.S. Geological Survey documented, pushed out 1.2 billion gallons in a single day, the highest flow ever recorded for an inland U.S. spring. Beneath the surface, the connected Wakulla-Leon Sinks cave system stretches roughly 45 miles, the longest underwater cave in the United States. Florida doesn't have mountains, but underneath it, there's a hidden world that rivals any cave system on the continent. Fact 7. A mermaid theater hides one of the deepest freshwater caves in the continental U.S. Weeki Wachee Springs has hosted underwater mermaid shows continuously since October 13, 1947. Former Navy frogman Newton Perry designed the air hose system still in use today. My wife visited years ago and still talks about how surreal the whole thing felt, watching a show while fish swam past the windows. But beneath that theater lies one of the deepest known freshwater cave systems in the continental United States. In 2007, researchers mapped passages bottoming out at 407 feet. The spring pumps over 100 million gallons a day at a constant 74 degrees, and the current at performance depth runs about 5 miles per hour, strong enough to rip a scuba mask off your face. You go for the mermaids. You stay because you just learned you're floating above one of the deepest holes in America. Fact 6. Cape Canaveral launches more rockets than most countries. In 2024, Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Space Force Station hosted 93 orbital launches. SpaceX alone accounted for 88. The entire world saw 259 that year, meaning one stretch of Florida coastline handled more than a third of global orbital traffic. The pad that launched humanity to the moon now launches satellites so frequently that locals barely look up anymore. Fact 5. A man lived underwater in Florida for 100 straight days. In Key Largo, Jules's Undersea Lodge is the only underwater hotel in the United States, accessible only by scuba diving through a moon pool. On March 1, 2023, Dr. Joseph Deturi, a retired Navy saturation diver who goes by Dr. Deep Sea, checked in and didn't come back up for 100 days, shattering the previous Guinness World Record of 73 days. His cholesterol dropped roughly 72 points, his deep and REM sleep increased by about 50%, he lost around 8 pounds in his first month, shrank roughly half an inch, and cracked a tooth on day 12, then lived with it for 88 more days. All to study long-term pressure on the human body. Fact 4. Hurricane Milton died for the most intense storm ever measured in the Gulf. In October 2024, 2 catastrophic hurricanes hit Florida within 13 days. Then came Milton. On October 7, 2024, according to NOAA's National Hurricane Center, Milton's central pressure dropped to 895 millibars, tying Hurricane Rita for the most intense Atlantic hurricane ever recorded in the Gulf. Milton peaked at Category 5 with winds of 180 miles per hour, made landfall near Siesta Key as a Category 3, cost $34.3 billion in damage, and killed 45 people. Florida took 2 record-breaking storms in less than 2 weeks and kept going. Fact 3. Florida Man exists because of a 1909 law. Florida Man isn't famous because Florida has crazier people. He's famous because Florida has a law most states don't. Florida Statute Chapter 119, enacted in 1909, and the Government in the Sunshine Law of 1967 make arrest reports and mugshots available to the public almost immediately. The same bizarre arrests that happen in Ohio or Montana never make the news because those states restrict access. Florida doesn't. And the punchline? The @FloridaMan Twitter account launched in 2013, and the mugshot used as his profile picture belongs to Ricky Lee Callahan, who was arrested in Indiana. Florida Man's face isn't even from Florida. Fact 2. The first free black settlement in America was in Florida. More than a century before the northbound Underground Railroad, there was a freedom trail running in the opposite direction, and it ended in Florida. In 1693, the Spanish crown decreed that any enslaved African who escaped British Carolina and reached Spanish Florida would be granted freedom. In 1738, the Spanish governor established Fort Mose, 2 miles north of St. Augustine, as the first legally sanctioned free black settlement in what is now the United States. It was captained by Francisco Menendez, a Gambian-born man who had fought his way to freedom. The Underground Railroad most Americans learn about ran north, but the original freedom route ran south, more than 100 years earlier. Fact 1. Florida holds the oldest European settlement in the United States. Most Americans learn that history begins at Jamestown in 1607. But 42 years earlier, on September 8, 1565, Spanish Admiral Pedro Menendez de Avilés founded St. Augustine, the oldest continuously occupied European settlement in the United States. That same day, his chaplain celebrated a Catholic Mass widely considered the first Thanksgiving ceremony on U.S. soil, 45 years before Plymouth. Days later, at a nearby inlet called Matanzas, which translates to slaughters, Menendez executed more than 130 shipwrecked French Huguenots. And this same state holds the only place on Earth where alligators and crocodiles coexist in the wild, supporting approximately 1.3 million alligators alongside 3,000 to 5,000 federally threatened American crocodiles. It's a biological phenomenon that exists nowhere else on the planet, and it's in the same state that warns you about falling iguanas. It's not the state you think it is, it's stranger than that. It always has been. Which fact surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. If you think we missed a crazy Florida fact, tell us below. Don't forget to subscribe and like so we can keep uncovering the wild side of American geography together. And stick around, the next video on the screen has even more unbelievable facts. I'll see you there.